After 9 years of this NDP Liberal Prime Minister, Canadians are getting poorer. His inflationary deficits are pushing up inflation and interest rates. That's because when the Prime Minister goes into the markets and borrows billions and billions to fund his spending spree, that bids up the interest rates for everyone else. And a new report from the Bank of Canada is shocking. Average mortgage payments will rise by more than 20% in the next couple of years. Where the heck are Canadian families supposed to come up with an extra few $100s just to pay higher mortgage payments for the homes they already own?
I'm going to ask members just to be very conscious of the language that they use. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
He didn't say anything that's wrong.
Mr. Speaker, given that it is my first opportunity to speak in the House today, I want to speak about a very grave threat to Canadians. Last week, the Conservative leader said he is going to ignore our charter rights.
No, he didn't.
A Conservative MP stood up in this House and said he's opposed to
Why do they keep saying this? He never said that.
Are outside attacking a woman's right to choose. So now we know the truth. They're going to attack our charter rights. They're going to attack the rights of every woman in Canada.
Hear, hear.
This is such misinformation.
Thank you, colleagues. I'm certain we all want to hear the member from Regina Capella. I'll ask the member from New Brunswick Southwest, who is a respected member in this House, to please to hold back until he has his voice. The honourable member from Regina Capella.
None of that is true, Mr. Speaker. She's just desperate to distract from her own record. And she's trying to console Canadians by saying that everything's okay because she hasn't quite maxed out the national credit card just yet. But all of that spending and borrowing is having an impact. In fact, Desjardins Financial has concluded that output per capita fell in every province last year, which is the broadest base standard of living decline in Canadian history other than the pandemic, costing Canadian families $4,200 a month. Will somebody over there please cut up the national credit card before more Canadians go bankrupt?
Well said, man. Well said.
Again, I'm going to ask all members to please to be.
How much do you guys want to bet she's going to squeak and she's going to say, Mr. Speaker? And really high
another
pitch.
respected member of the House to please only take the floor when she is addressed. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, there was a lot of shouting while I was speaking from the other side of the House. And that is because they are afraid that Canadians are starting to understand their real plan. Canadians have seen they hang out with white supremacists and don't disavow.
Whoa, come on,
Canadians
Greg.
have seen they are getting ready to tear up the Charter of Rights. And now
Greg, you gotta stop her and make her retract that, man.
A woman's right to choose.
We can't call Trudeau wacko, but she can call the Conservatives white supremacists. Come on, Greg. Come on, get your house in order.
The Honourable Member from Regina Capella.
We'll take no lessons from a government that's trampling over free speech rights by trying to control the internet and control what Canadians can see and post online. But, Mr. Speaker, for random Liberals hoping that when the outgoing Prime Minister finally leaves, a new Liberal leader will rescue them, they're about to be sorely disappointed. Mark Carbon Tax Carney continued his Liberal leadership campaign in the Senate yesterday, where he pushed the same radical agenda, endorsed the current Prime Minister's carbon tax, and couldn't come up with even a penny to cut in wasteful spending. If Mark Carbon Tax Carney won't do it, the current Prime Minister won't do it, will somebody over there axe the tax and fix the budget?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I am really delighted to hear the Conservative House Leader talk about the rights of Canadians and how important they are. I'm a woman, I'm a mother, and let me tell you what the most fundamental right of every woman and girl in Canada is. The right to control your own body. It is time for the Conservatives to stand up and clearly say, are they going to defend a woman's right to choose? Because what we're hearing from them is they want to end it.
Then I have Deputy Louis.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, today at committee, We had great cooperation between the opposition and government. Thanks to the member for Mégantic-L'Érable, the minister understands that July 1st is moving day in Quebec. Thanks to us, the minister now knows that. And I might be smiling, but it's no smiling, no laughing matter, because July 1st is the worst day of the year, especially for those working with those struggling. And this year, people are going to be paying more than ever for rent. And what is the government going to do to help them? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased that a member from Quebec is asking that question today. Obviously, I'm not a Quebecer, but I admire the women and feminists of Quebec. Quebecers always understand the importance of the right of each woman in Canada, their right to choice. Do the Quebec Conservatives reaffirm the right of each and every woman in Canada? The honourable member. All women in Quebec and all women in Canada, all men in Canada and all men in Quebec are suffering from this government's inflationary policy. That's what's affecting Canadians. The banks, the mortgages and rents are going to increase because of this government's inflationary spending. Is there anyone from this government who can clearly explain how these $500 billion in spending, the $500 billion in spending, how is that going to reduce inflation? The Right Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'm so happy that the member opposite raised the question of Canadians' rights and the rights of Quebecers as well. What affects every woman in Canada and in Quebec is our right to control our own body. This week, a Conservative member here in this place said that he was against that. There are Conservative members on the Hill outside today saying the opposite. What does the member from Quebec have to say about this?
Greg
member
almost
for
fell
La Prairie.
over his own gown.
Coming back to the serious insults from the Liberal member about defending the French language, this morning we were treated to his forced apology to the witnesses he intimidated. Too little, too late. Now that we know exactly what he thinks of Quebecers who are concerned about the decline of French, he has no business being president of the APF, no business traveling the world in princely style to speak on Quebecers' behalf. Will the Prime Minister do the right thing and ask him to step down? He no longer has the confidence of Quebecers. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to begin by thanking the bloc members, the member who spoke a few minutes ago about the importance of women's rights in Canada. She was very eloquent, and we support what she said. We understand, we agree that there has been a decline of French all across Canada and in Quebec and in the other provinces as well. And that's why our government has been supporting French all across the country.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but every day Chrystia Freeland has handwriting on her hand.
The Prime Minister added insult to injury.
Every day.
He says the bloc is going after this member because, in his opinion, we don't like Francophones outside Quebec. The fact that we don't take insults lying down to him is an attack on official language minorities. In other words, in his view, Quebecers who refuse to be called extremists and so on are Francophobes. I've got news for him from many Quebecers. You can't walk all over us. The member has no business representing us in the Francophonie. Will the Prime Minister show him the door?
Watch when it goes back to
the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
If we get a good camera angle.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not a Quebecer and I'm not a Francophone. But I do truly want to reassure my colleague opposite that for our government, French all across the country is very important.
There it is.
And we understand that there's been a decline of French in Quebec and all across the country. And that's why our government is supporting Francophones in Quebec and Francophones everywhere else in the country. And that's why we are investing in French.